Michelle Obama stepped onto the view stage, her smile sharp, her tone unrelenting, as she called Donald Trump a pathetic loser. She mocked his deportation policy as inhumane, tearing families apart, then turned to Trump's marriage to Melania. So fake it's laughable. The audience erupted in applause, cheers echoing like fuel on a fire. Within hours, Karoline Leavitt appeared in an urgent Fox News interview. Her eyes blazed. Michelle just attacked the president. She picked the wrong fight. I'm ready to face her anywhere, anytime to expose the truth. Her razor-sharp challenge spread like wildfire. CNN seized the moment, inviting both to America tonight for a live showdown. That evening, Michelle nodded, calm. I'm always ready to speak the truth. Karoline Leavitt, with a defiant smile and clenched fists, responded on X right after accepting the invite. She'll regret opening her mouth. I'll crush her on CNN, no mercy. The America Tonight stage lights flared, opening music blared. Anderson Cooper stood center stage, voice steady. Welcome to a special evening. We have two guests, Michelle Obama, former First Lady, and Karoline Leavitt, White House press secretary. The audience clapped, tension already crackling. Michelle sat on the left in an elegant blue dress, faint smile, icy eyes. Leavitt on the right, crisp black suit, hands clenched, eyes burning. Cooper continued. After Mrs. Obama's fierce criticism on The View, we're here to hear both sides. Mrs. Obama, please begin. Before Michelle could speak, Leavitt leaned forward, her voice cutting steel. No need to beat around the bush, Anderson. Michelle called President Trump a failure. I'm here to set the record straight. The crowd gasped. Cooper flinched. Miss Leavitt, please wait. But Leavitt didn't stop. She pointed at Michelle. You talk about failure? Look at your husband's 8 disastrous years. Obamacare is a mess. Millions of Americans lost jobs, and you sit there preaching like you're innocent. I'm not here for your fairy tales. Michelle raised an eyebrow, her smile briefly stiffening, composed. Leavitt pressed on. You call our deportation policy inhumane? I've got stats. Over 100 illegal criminals removed under President Trump's leadership. That's real action, to protect Americans. Something your husband never managed. Her voice sharpened. You want to talk about tearing families apart? Ask the American families who lost loved ones to illegal immigrant crime what they think of your humanity. The room exploded, boos, applause, shouting. Cooper raised a hand. Miss Leavitt, please let Mrs. Obama respond. Leavitt smirked. They don't want you to hear the truth. But I'll say it. President Trump built America. Your husband Barack left a mountain of debt and empty promises. Michelle, you're done. I'm the present. Michelle finally spoke, voice low but sharp. Miss Leavitt, I don't know what you're talking about, but I won't sit here listening to fabrications. She turned to Cooper. If she wants to talk truth, let me start. Leavitt cut in. Fabrications? You want truth? The truth is, your husband left the border wide open, let criminals flood in. And now you sit here pretending to care? She pulled a paper from her pocket, held it to the camera. This is an ICE report. Crimes by illegal immigrants in Barack Obama's final year. You want to talk about tearing families apart? Tell that to the victims. She tossed the paper on the table. Can you face these numbers, or do you just spin sad stories for tears? The audience roared again. One person shouted, Keep going, Karoline. Cooper banged the table. Miss Leavitt, we need order. Leavitt leaned in closer to Michelle. You call the president's marriage fake? I'm not here for gossip games. I'm here to defend a man who acts for America. Unlike your husband, who talked a big game and left a mess. Michelle shook her head, trying to stay calm. She clearly doesn't want a debate. Just to yell. Leavitt laughed, dripping with sarcasm. Yell? No, Michelle, I'm speaking truth, and you can't handle it. You've lived in an ivory tower too long, coasting on Barack's glow. I'm different. I stand on my own, and I don't need anyone shielding me to beat you tonight. The America Tonight studio still shook from Karoline Leavitt's ferocious attack. Anderson Cooper struggled to regain control, turning to Michelle Obama. Mrs. Obama, Miss Leavitt has made several accusations. Your response? Michelle sat up straight, hands resting lightly on the table. Her calm smile returned, but her eyes were colder than ever. She took a breath, her low, steady voice cutting through the tension. Miss Leavitt clearly loves to shout, but I'm not here to play who's loudest. If she wants truth, I'll give America the truth. She turned to Leavitt, eyes locked. You call Obamacare a disaster. Millions of Americans got health insurance for the first time because of it. That's action, not empty words. Trump's deportation policy isn't protecting anyone. It's cruelty masked as security. I've met the families torn apart, kids crying as parents were dragged away. You call that protecting America? I call it heartless. The audience erupted in applause, cheers rising from Michelle's supporters. She continued, her tone laced with controlled sarcasm. You can throw stats at me all day, but numbers don't tell human stories. You're too young to get that. Leavitt laughed, the sound harsh in the studio. She leaned in. Young, maybe, but I'm not as naive as you think. You want to spin sad? Tales for tears. I'm not here for theater. You say Obamacare is a success? Millions lost jobs over skyrocketing costs. Small businesses collapsed. That's your husband's legacy. Her voice hardened. Families torn apart? Ask the Americans who lost loved ones to illegal immigrant crime how they feel. Who do you choose, Michelle? Americans or lawbreakers? The crowd reacted again, applause and boos clashing. Cooper raised a hand. Miss Leavitt, please let Mrs. Obama finish, but Leavitt pressed forward. You're not done. But I'll go first. You want to play morality? I've got truth. And truth doesn't need tears to stand. She gestured like holding something invisible. You call me heartless? That's reality. Something you and your husband dodged for 8 years. Michelle shook her head, voice still calm but now edged with bite. Miss Karoline, you can scream about reality all day, but your version is twisted. Barack's administration saved America from economic collapse, something Trump never grasped. His deportation policy didn't solve problems, it created chaos, and shouting doesn't make you right. Leavitt smirked. Chaos? You want chaos? Look at the border under your husband, wide open to anyone who wanted in. Trump fixed it, and you can't stand that he did it better. She pulled another paper from her stack, holding it up. Barack's last year, over 2,000 violent crimes tied. 2 illegal immigrants, you call that saving America? That's failure. And you're part of it. One person shouted from the crowd, right on, Karoline. Michelle raised an eyebrow, holding her composure. You like numbers? Then let's talk about the millions of jobs created under Barack, something Trump bragged about but never matched. Leavitt cut her off instantly. Jobs? You mean the low-wage gigs Americans were forced into because of your husband's failed policies? Trump brought real jobs back. Manufacturing. Energy. Not your number games. Cooper sighed, trying again. Both of you, please. Leavitt turned to the crowd. She wants to distract you with feel-good stories and cherry-picked stats. I'm here to say it straight. Trump acts. Her husband just talked. You call me young? Fine, I'm young enough to see how outdated she is. Her voice sharpened. You've ridden Barack's coattails too long. I don't need a boost to beat you, and I'm doing it right now. Michelle tilted her head, her voice calm but cutting. Miss Karoline, you can attack me, but it doesn't change the fact that Trump's administration is dividing this country. I don't need anyone's glow to stand here. I speak from the heart, not from anger. The audience clapped. Leavitt laughed, cold. Heart? You think heart beats truth? I'm not angry, Michelle. I'm just saying what you won't. You divided the country. Look at the protests under your husband. That's division. She turned to Cooper. She wants to play emotions. I've got facts. And facts don't care about feelings. Leavitt raised, her hand ticking off points. Chaotic border. Stagnant economy. Obamacare flop. That's Barack Obama's legacy. And she can't run from it. Michelle opened her mouth to reply. Leavitt cut in again. Not done. Fine, Leavitt snapped, eyes locked on Michelle. But I'm warning you, every word you say just gives me more ammo. I'm not here to lose. And you'll see, I never stop. The America Tonight studio vibrated with shouts from both sides. The air felt heavy, charged like a lightning strike waiting to happen. Anderson Cooper, face flushed from trying to maintain control, raised a hand. We need calm. Michelle took a breath, trying to steady the energy. She turned to the audience, her voice low but calm as ever. I'm not here to argue with anger, I'm here to talk about what matters, a united America. Not one split apart by policies like Trump's. Miss Leavitt can yell stats all night, but Americans want leadership with heart, not just a loud voice. Leavitt's laugh cut through like a whip. She leaned forward, voice sharp. Heart? You think heart solves anything? I'm not here to soothe, I'm here to say what you won't. You want unity? Look at Ferguson, look at Baltimore. That's your version of unity. Trump brought order. You left chaos. The audience roared, some cheering, others booing. Michelle raised an eyebrow, her calm holding steady. Miss Karoline, you twist history to fit your agenda. Those protests were people demanding justice. That's something Trump's administration never cared to understand. Leavitt slammed her palm on the table. Justice? That was street violence. Your husband didn't lead. He let it spiral. Trump cleaned it up, and you can't handle that he did it better. Cooper tried to interject. Miss Leavitt? But she brushed him off, pulling a small screen from her pocket and flicking it toward the camera. Here's proof. Video of Trump signing the border security order his first week. That's action, not the empty talk you specialize in. She turned back to Michelle, smirking. You keep spinning fairy tales about unity, but Americans picked Trump because he actually does something, your husband speechified, and left everything in ruins. Michelle's voice sharpened. You can play your clips, but it doesn't change what his administration did. Divide this country with fear and rage. Barack brought hope. That's something neither you nor Trump ever understood. Leavitt scoffed, voice dripping with sarcasm. Hope? 8 years of failure is not hope, Michelle. It's delusion. Trump brought jobs, security, strength, and you sit there clinging to a fantasy. She stood up, pointing directly at Michelle. You want to talk division? Look at your husband's immigration policy. Open borders, criminals walking in. Americans don't need hope. They need results. And Trump delivered. The audience burst. One person waving a Trump sign as Cooper raised his voice. Please sit down. Michelle pushed forward, voice firm but strained. You can attack me and Barack all you want, but Americans know who actually cares. Deporting families with no plan. That's not protection, that's cruelty. Leavitt turned to the crowd. She wants you to forget that her husband left this country vulnerable. I'm here to remind you Trump rebuilt it, and she can't stand that he did it better. Michelle opened her mouth to reply, but Leavitt cut in again, raising a hand. Don't bother. You spin sob stories to cover up failure. I've got facts, and facts don't cry. Michelle's expression shifted. Her smile faded. For the first time that night, her voice trembled ever so slightly. You think facts are everything, but leadership isn't just numbers. It's people. It's compassion. Leavitt's response came cold and fast. People? You mean the ones who lost jobs because of Obamacare? Or the ones living in fear thanks to an unsecured border? I understand more than you think, and I'm here to protect them, not comfort them with empty words. Cooper tried again, glancing toward the camera. We're witnessing an unrelenting showdown, but Leavitt cut him off once more. Unrelenting? You're damn right. I'm not here to negotiate with Mrs. Obama. She sat down, eyes burning. Want to keep going? Go ahead. Michelle stared at her, visibly shaken. She inhaled, slowly. Miss Karoline, you can shout all you want, but that doesn't make it true. Trump's administration didn't unite this country, it split it. Leavitt didn't hesitate. She shot to her feet again. Truth? You and your husband failed. Trump fixed it. You call that division. I call it victory. You just can't stomach that he did what Barack never could. Cooper, sweat beading on his brow, leaned into the mic. We need calm. No one listened. Michelle Obama sat upright, her hands clenched so tight her knuckles had gone white. Her signature calm was gone, replaced by a steel glare that cut through the tension like glass. Across from her, Karoline Leavitt stood tall, eyes blazing, lips curled into a victorious smirk, the look of someone who just sensed her opponent crack. She raised a pointed finger at Michelle. Trump built a strong America. Your husband tore it apart from the inside. That's not leadership. That's a delusion. Barack talked, Trump acted. She turned to the crowd, her voice slicing through the air. She wants you to believe Barack saved America? Take a look. Sky-high debt, border chaos, promises made and broken. Trump fixed what he left in ruins, and she can't handle that he did it better. Applause erupted, a MAGA sign shot up in the air. Cooper slammed the table, trying to restore order. Michelle inhaled, steadying herself. Her voice was low, but a tremble slipped through. Miss Karoline, twist the truth all you like. But Americans remember who brought us through the storm. Barack led us out of an economic crisis. Trump leads with fear. Leavitt jumped in without hesitation, eyes lit with fire. Fear? You call 8 years of stagnation light? That's the darkness Trump had to clean up. Americans were scared of job loss, of violence, of a future slipping away. They don't fear Trump. They fear what your legacy left behind. Michelle opened her mouth to respond, but Leavitt stepped closer, voice glacial. You want to cover failure with sob stories. You say Trump's deportation policy is cruel? Here's the truth. Over 100 criminals removed. One's your husband let stay. Who do you protect, Michelle? Americans or lawbreakers? She turned again to the audience. She wants you to forget the victims. I won't. Trump stands with Americans. She stands with lies. Leavitt flicked on another screen, holding it up to the camera. This, Trump's executive order boosting ICE. Thousands of criminal illegals off the streets. You call that division? I call it protection, something her husband never delivered. She slammed the screen onto the table. Her gaze locked on Michelle. Riots. Under Barack? That was real rage. Trump restored order. And you just sit there judging from your pedestal. Michelle leaned in, voice tighter now, trembling. You don't understand, Karoline. Leadership isn't about crushing people. It's about lifting them up. Barack did that. Trump tears people down. But Leavitt struck back, voice like ice. Lifting who? Criminals? Freeloaders? I'm not here to pat backs. I'm here to expose the lies, and I'm doing it right now. She turned to the crowd again, confidence radiating. She calls Trump the villain? No, he wins. They lost. Her husband left America weak. I'm here to remind you who rebuilt it, and she can't admit it. Michelle shook her head, her hands trembling slightly on the table. For a moment, she said, Nothing. Leavitt smirked, savoring the silence. Out of words? Good, because I'm not done. I'll tear apart every line you feed this audience until you admit what everyone already knows. Michelle finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. Miss Karoline, yell all you want. It doesn't make it true. Trump isn't the answer. Leavitt stepped forward, close enough to feel the tension crackling between them. No, he's the solution. You're the problem. You hide behind speeches. I bring results, I bring action. And that's why we elected him, not your husband, not your promises, him. The crowd roared. Cries of Karoline, Karoline echoed across the studio. Michelle sat back, her jaw tight, her fists unmoving. The calm, poised figure was gone. In her place sat a woman cornered, cracked, outmatched. Anderson Cooper wiped sweat from his brow, glancing at the camera. We are witnessing something truly unprecedented. But Leavitt wasn't finished. She stood, in the center of the stage, eyes locked on Michelle. Want to keep going? Go ahead, I'll crush you. Michelle stared back, silent. Leavitt's laugh rang out, cold and triumphant. Game over, Michelle. I'm the future. You're the past. And all of America knows it. The room shook from the noise. Cooper, exhausted, tried again. We need to calm down. But no one listened. Leavitt stood tall, eyes blazing, a proud smile curling on her lips like a warrior who just landed the final blow. She raised her hand, voice cutting through the tension like steel. Out of words, Michelle? Good. I've made it clear. Trump is victory. You and your husband are defeat. Michelle drew a slow, deliberate breath, her posture stiff, her voice quiet but strained. Miss Karoline, I didn't come here to trade blows. I came to speak the truth, and truth doesn't need to shout to be heard. She turned toward the audience, her gaze softening as if searching for connection amidst the chaos. Americans know who truly cares about them. I don't need to scream to prove it. But the conviction in her voice was thinner now, her words more of a final defense than a rallying cry. Karoline's pressure hadn't just hit, it had landed. Leavitt laughed, the sound cold and clear echoing through the studio. Truth? She said, stepping to the edge of the table, eyes daring. You're giving up because deep down, you know I'm right. Trump's the winner. You and your husband. Your history. She turned to the crowd, voice firm and unrelenting. She calls me aggressive? Fine. I'm aggressive for Americans. For the families Barack forgot. You want to talk about caring? Ask the parents of children lost to immigrant crime. They don't need her comforting words, they need Trump's protection. The audience erupted. Applause thundered. Karoline, Karoline! Echoed through the studio. Michelle shook her head, her voice now weary. You can come at me all night, but I'm not playing this game anymore. She turned to Cooper, eyes tired. I've said what I needed to say. If she wants to shout, let her. It wasn't a concession, it was a quiet surrender. No more fire, no more rebuttals. Just an effort to preserve dignity under a crushing tide. Cooper nodded, trying to close the segment. Thank you, Mrs. Obama. But Leavitt cut him off with razor precision. No, Anderson, I'm not finished. She turned back to Michelle. That same relentless smile etched on her face. She wants to walk away? Fine, but I'll make sure America knows why. She stepped forward again. You talk about caring. I care about real Americans, the workers, the forgotten families. You care about your image, about basking in your husband's faded spotlight. She raised her hand, counting off each failure like tally marks. Soaring national debt, border chaos, economic stagnation. That's your legacy. And I'm here to rip the mask off. Cheers. Booze. Another Trump sign lifted high. Cooper tried again to quiet the crowd. Please sit down. But Leavitt was locked in. She wants you to think Trump is the problem. Truth is, she and her husband are the problem. Trump's the solution, and I won't apologize for standing by him. She pointed directly at Michelle. You've lost, you can retreat, but you're not walking away without hearing it. You were beaten. Michelle looked up, hands unclenched now, resting softly on the table. Her voice, when it came, was barely above a whisper. You don't understand leadership, Karoline. It's not about domination. I don't need to win this argument to know I'm right. Leavitt laughed, a hard, humorless sound. Leadership? 8 years of excuses? That's what you call leadership? I call it a joke. Trump showed America what real leadership looks like. And guess what? She leaned in, smile unwavering. You don't need to win. Perfect. Because you already lost. And all of America saw it. Leavitt sat down, proud eyes never leaving Michelle. She tapped the table once, like a final signature. On a closed chapter. You want to walk away? Go ahead. But remember, I crushed you tonight. And I'll do it again, the next time you open your mouth. Michelle said nothing. Her hands were still, her stare distant, the calm icon, now faded, outmatched. Cooper glanced at the camera, his voice uneasy. This has been an unbelievable night. We'll take a... Leavitt interrupted one last time, voice as cold as ever. No need for a break, Anderson. I'm done. She's got nothing left. And with that, Karoline Leavitt stood and walked off stage, shoulders squared, eyes defiant. Michelle remained seated, bathed in the fading glow of studio lights, her silence louder than anything she'd said. The once untouchable figure now sat, eclipsed by a rising force. The crowd was still roaring. Applause thundered. And as the lights dimmed, the moment was sealed. The showdown was over, and America was already on fire. Karoline crushes exploded to the top of X's trending list within minutes, defying every prediction. Users flooded the platform with clips of Karoline Leavitt holding up the screen, shouting about Trump's victory. One viral caption read, "She just took down Michelle Obama. No mercy." Another post lit up with, Karoline Leavitt is the Democrats' worst nightmare, young, aggressive, and fearless. Fox News jumped on the moment fast, replaying Leavitt's on-air takedown with the banner. Leavitt crushes Michelle Obama in TV battle of the century. Sean Hannity came on right after, his tone electric. Karoline Leavitt isn't just defending President Trump, she flattened a Democratic icon with raw truth and fearless grit. Conservative commentators piled on, praising her precision and poise. She's only 27, one analyst said. But she did what few dared. She faced Michelle Obama head-on. And won. Over on MSNBC, the damage control began. Joy Reid commented, Mrs. Obama held her dignity against Leavitt's aggression, but their voices were drowned out by the flood backing Leavitt. On X, the memes hit like wildfire. One image of Leavitt pointing at Michelle was captioned, When you call Trump a failure and get KO'd by a 27-year-old press secretary. Another clip showed Michelle sitting in silence, fists clenched under the table. The text read, When you know, you've lost but still have to keep your head up. Trump supporters posted nonstop. Karoline just showed America who really leads. Even neutral users chimed in, She's aggressive, but she came loaded with facts. Michelle couldn't counter. The divide was clear, but the tide was unmistakably turning. Less than an hour after the broadcast, Donald Trump posted on Truth Social in all caps, Karoline Leavitt is my star. She just crushed Michelle Obama and showed all of America the truth. Fantastic. The post racked up thousands of shares within minutes, locking in Leavitt's place as the new MAGA favorite. A White House insider leaked that Trump had called her immediately after the show, laughing, You made me proud, Karoline. No one did it better tonight. Democrats tried to spin the outcome. Supporters of Michelle posted, She didn't stoop to Leavitt's level. Dignity still wins. But the narrative had slipped. One CNN commentator admitted, Leavitt won. The optics. She was a storm and Michelle couldn't weather it. Online polls reflected the landslide. Over 60% of viewers named Karoline Leavitt the clear winner. Democrats were rattled. Across the country, reactions poured in. At a Texas bar, the crowd cheered when Leavitt raised the Trump screen. She speaks for us, one man shouted. In a New York cafe, a quiet group shook their heads. She shouldn't have stepped into that fight, someone whispered about Michelle. Love her or hate her, no one could deny it. Leavitt had left a mark. A young, unflinching voice who stood toe-to-toe with a global icon and walked away victorious. Outside, the CNN studio, Leavitt stood in her sharp black suit, eyes gleaming, surrounded by flashing cameras. I came to defend President Trump and speak the truth, she told reporters. Michelle Obama thought she could mock him without pushback. She was wrong. I proved that tonight. When a journalist asked, Do you think you were too aggressive? Leavitt smirked. Aggressive? I call it fighting for Americans. If Mrs. Obama couldn't handle that well, that's her problem. Michelle declined interviews and exited quietly with her team. A source close to her said, She doesn't want to keep fighting. She believes the truth will speak for itself. But tonight, in the public's eyes, that truth belonged to Leavitt. Political analysts were already buzzing. Karoline Leavitt is no longer just a press secretary. She's a rising Republican star. On X, one user posted, Leavitt just turned Michelle into the past. This is MAGA's new generation. Another added, Michelle lost because she wasn't ready for that kind of fire. Despite Democratic spin, the reality was undeniable. Leavitt had seized the moment, and with it the spotlight. The next morning, Trump summoned her to the Oval Office. He shook her hand with a rare grin. You did great, Karoline. No one's ever taken down Michelle like you did. Leavitt, eyes steady, replied, I did it for you and for America, Mr. President. She mocked you. I couldn't let that slide. Trump patted her shoulder. You're my secret weapon. Keep this up. We'll go far. Leavitt left the White House that day with more than just a compliment. She walked out with purpose. Back in her office, she stood before a mirror, adjusting her suit. That clash with Michelle wasn't just a debate. It was a turning point. The moment she stopped being just a spokesperson and became the new face of a generation. One unafraid to fight, unapologetic in her views and ready for the national stage. An aide knocked. "Miss Leavitt, the press is waiting." She smiled faintly. "Good. Let's give them more to talk about." Final thought. This story reflects today's America, fierce polarization, the power of media, and the rise of bold new voices unafraid to challenge icons. In the clash between Michelle and Karoline, we saw not just a personal feud, but a symbolic generational and ideological collision. Whether you lean left or right, one thing's clear. In modern politics, it's not just what you say, it's how, when, and where you say it. If you loved watching Karoline Leavitt go head-to-head with Michelle Obama and emerge victorious, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell, because more unfiltered, high-stakes showdowns are coming your way. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.